Revenge with Karen. I don't want any legacy clutter in my infrastructure, Travis barked, stabbing at my terminal like it owed him child support. That was my third day working under the new IT director, and the moment I knew I was staring into the mouth of a very dumb lion. He just deleted a script I spent 2 years refining without even checking dependencies. Said it looked too verbose. That script ran nightly backups, handled version control sanitation, silently recovered crash loops across 3 legacy clusters. Gone, just like that. Poof. Now, I've worked in IT for over a decade, and I've seen my fair share of incompetent bobbleheads and button-downs. But Travis Penn was something else entirely. A bipedal firmware bug with a Bluetooth headset and a superiority complex coded in JavaScript. He strutted into the department like a dog who'd just peed on a CEO's tire and gotten promoted for it. Held everyone champ, even the women. Especially the women. He'd been hired straight from a failed crypto startup where the main product was PowerPoint decks and unpaid interns. And now he had the gall to stroll into my infrastructure. 8 years of silent uptime, seamless migrations, patched Apache modules, and homegrown scripts that saved the company hundreds of grand in consulting fees, and start swinging his agile around like a toddler with a leaf blower. Folks, before we dive deeper into this corporate circus, let me drop a quick real-world patch note here. 97% of y'all listen to stories like this without subscribing. Hit that follow and toss us a like. It keeps this engine running and our small crew caffeinated enough to expose the next Travis before he deletes the login server again. Seriously, you'll make my day. Anyway, back to the meltdown parade. Travis's first innovation was deprecating our custom monitoring tool. Said it was too old school. Replaced it with a bloated SAW dashboard that required 6 separate browser extensions to function and crashed if you used dark mode. He also decided that code comments were a crutch and real engineers don't need them. I caught him copy-pasting a block of Perl into our Python stack. I asked where he got it. He said Stack Overflow. I said, from which decade? Travis, the first real red flag though, came on a Wednesday. He accidentally locked out our entire QA environment because he didn't realize sudo required a password for a reason. Blamed me, said I should have left clearer instructions. I showed him the README file. He squinted at it like it was in Klingon and mumbled something about streamlining documentation workflows. But I stayed quiet, professional, calm, smiling through gritted molars. Instead, I started keeping my own changelog offline, began archiving my scripts to an encrypted repo on a private server. Every function, every module. I didn't say a word. I just watched. Because when someone walks into your house, kicks over your boots, and calls it feng shui, you don't shout. You wait until winter. And then you let him figure out what happens when the furnace fails, and you're the one who wired the damn thermostat. The first time I wasn't invited to the weekly IT alignment meeting, I thought it was a scheduling error. Outlook glitch, maybe. The second time, I figured Travis had just forgotten. By the third, when I saw Caleb, fresh out of college, still calling CSS backend stuff, come out of the boardroom smug and stinking of Axe and imposter syndrome, I knew the purge had begun. I built this system. I duct-taped its skeleton together when our startup budget could barely afford Ethernet cables. I streamlined the migration to virtual servers. I was the one who figured out why the payroll API kept double-charging everyone whose last name started with S. I once fixed a memory leak using nothing but coffee, spite, and a bash script written at 3 a.m. during a thunderstorm. And now, it was being replaced by PowerPoint-certified toddlers who thought YAML was a Pokemon. Travis started by slicing away my authority like burnt toast edges. First, it was the alerting system, handed off to Nate, whose main qualification was being tall and never asking questions. Then came build pipeline ownership, rerouted to Kyle, whose crowning career moment was once rebooting a server by kicking it. Travis started calling me the historical SME, like I was a fossil in his Jurassic innovation zoo. We need forward thinkers, he told me, spinning in his ergonomic chair like a man with no vertebrae. Not legacy maintainers. Tech's evolving, Jane. Gotta evolve with it. I nodded. Didn't blink. Just added another bullet point to my private dossier titled When This SHT Implodes. I started documenting like my career depended on it, which, turns out, it did. Not for the reasons HR would assume. Every script, every dependency chain, every system quirk Travis didn't know existed, I archived all of it. Offsite, fully encrypted, mirrored daily. I didn't just prepare for disaster recovery. I became the disaster recovery. Meanwhile, Travis was making changes live on production. I'm not exaggerating. He once edited a cron job from his phone. Gotta move fast, he said, tapping away in a Slack thread labeled #urgent hotfix no time. That hotfix accidentally rebooted our billing gateway in the middle of a subscription sync cycle. Took down 12% of revenue for 2 hours. He blamed the firewall. Told finance it was a DNS caching thing. It wasn't. It was him. Every time he made a change, I ran a diff check. Quietly. No confrontation. Just observation. Watching the way his deployments wobbled like a drunk on stilts. He'd strip out logic checks, disable fallbacks, replace hardened code with third-party modules he found on GitHub, last updated in 2016. One of them literally had a warning in the README that said, "Don't use this in production." Seriously. And still, I said nothing. Because that's the thing about being underestimated. It buys you time. Time to prepare. Time to make copies. Time to create one tiny, elegant script dependency buried deep in the automation chain that no one notices until it's not there. I knew something was off when my phone lit up with a Slack ping from Kyle. Of all people, nice shout out in the director's sync. Except I hadn't attended the director's sync. Wasn't even invited. Again. Turns out Travis had just delivered a riveting little PowerPoint to the senior leadership team about redefining resilience in our server architecture. Showcased uptime charts, fault-tolerant diagrams, even dropped a few buzzwords like elastic self-healing clusters like he knew what they meant. Then, with the sleight of hand of a drunken magician, he rolled out my recovery architecture, my system of layered watchdogs, recursive failbacks, and live patching cron jobs, as if it had materialized from the shiny folds of his LinkedIn profile. He even gave the whole system a new name, Penn Resilience Trademark. I built that framework during the worst outage in company history. Back when we ran out of coffee and hope in the same week. When we kept the system breathing on spit, chewing gum, and my refusal to let it die. He renamed it, claimed it, put it on a slide deck, and still I smiled, said nothing. Walked into the server closet, sat down on the little rolling stool next to the patch panel, and just breathed. You don't scream when a rat crawls across your boot. You wait, let it get comfortable. 2 days later, I got an email from HR. Subject: Knowledge transfer request. Hi Jane, as part of our transition planning, please prepare comprehensive documentation of all workflows, maintenance protocols, and escalation procedures currently under your ownership. Deadline: Friday EOD. Translation: Write the manual for the children who will crash the ship after they toss you overboard. I opened the fallback automation script, a masterpiece. The silent script behind the script. It managed the crash monitors, hot-swapped disk usage patterns, ran disk cleanup in low-traffic windows, and rebalanced orphaned log rotations. It also had a dead man switch, a silent checker for my user ID. If I went inactive for more than 96 hours, the script would flag for manual override. Until now. I scrolled to line 274, added one tiny dependency. If author is not Jane A, then exit 77, that was it. No damage, no sabotage, just one lock, a surgical stitch. Not destructive, just honest. A truth buried in logic. This thing only runs if I'm still here. Later that afternoon, I passed Travis in the hallway. He was laughing with a junior dev about how his old startup moved too fast for documentation. I smiled. He didn't notice, never looked directly at me, just through me. Like I was wallpaper in a house he just bought. Ugly, outdated, ready to be stripped. But here's the thing he never understood about wallpaper. It holds memories. And sometimes wires. And if you pull it down without checking, you might just short the whole house. I wasn't eavesdropping. Let's get that straight. I was retrieving my mug, the black ceramic one that says RTFM in Comic Sans, because irony keeps me alive. And I took a detour through the server room because the kitchen coffee was burnt motor oil and the admin stash always had the good beans. That's when I heard it. Travis's voice echoing off the racks, too loud like always. He was with Ron from Network, both of them cackling like high school boys with a new slur to try on. She was just a glorified babysitter, Travis said, between gulps of Monster and ego. No woman touches my root server. Seen her scripts? Half of them are duct tape for duct tape, they laughed. Ron slapped something, probably a switch he shouldn't have, and I just stood there, holding my empty mug. The ceramic suddenly felt like lead in my hand. I didn't cry, didn't throw it, didn't march in and unleash hell like a techie Joan of Arc. I just turned around, walked back to my desk, opened a terminal window, and began. I head into the fallback server first, then the sync node, and the patching daemon. My invisible glue scripts, there were 14 of them, each ran as scheduled jobs across systems Travis didn't even know existed. They were the silent army, the duct tape and prayer that kept the daily chaos from igniting. One by one, I added a final condition to each. Not a shutdown, not a nuke, just an elegant, conditional truth. Run only if Jane A user equals true, which, in ops terms, and run only if I'm still employed. I timestamped them, tied them to my LDAP profile and the badge system. If HR revoked my access, the heartbeat would stop, and with it, every silent recovery, every watchdog, every nightly cleanup. The castle would still look solid until the termites stopped holding hands. Then I pulled up my event log tracker, a little dashboard I built that mirrored key metrics. CPU spikes, user auth drift, anomalous memory growth, TLS cert crawl. I labeled it System Janitor. Travis never touched it, thought it was a joke. I updated the dashboard's header, custodian active, true. I closed my laptop, drove home in silence. It was raining because of course it was. My hands didn't shake. My jaw didn't clench. I made tea, took off my boots, sat by the window and stared out while the storm painted the glass in slow, electric streaks. And from my home terminal, I watched. Ran my audit. Nothing malicious, just observed. I watched Travis's code commits roll through the logs like trucks with loose axles. Watched him patch a security hole by commenting out the login validator. Watched him disable a memory threshold warning because it was noisy. Every bad line, every shortcut, every crack he made wider. I bookmarked, not to sabotage, to remember. Because when the fall comes, it's not the storm that brings the house down. It's the absence of the woman who held it together. Friday morning came wrapped in fake smiles and stale donuts. HR sent the calendar invite as Q4 workflow optimization review, which was corporate for we're about to gut you, but with pie charts. I showed up 10 minutes early as always. Slacks pressed, hair up, quiet dignity intact. They made me wait. Then they called me in, Travis already seated, sipping from a bottle of kombucha, like he knew what fermentation meant. On his laptop screen, a performance dashboard he didn't understand, displaying uptime he hadn't earned. Linda from HR smiled the way morticians probably smile at closed casket services. Jane, as we realign for a more agile future, she started, reading off a script someone paid $300 an hour to draft, making space for voices aligned with our innovation-forward strategy. Your contributions have been noted and deeply appreciated. Unfortunately, my badge access was revoked mid-sentence. I saw the Slack notification pop up on my phone. You have been signed out. Please log in again. Neat timing, not even dramatic. Just clean, pre-planned. Like a silent vacuum sucking out the oxygen before anyone notices. I didn't argue, didn't ask questions. Just nodded once, stood up, and walked out with my dignity folded neatly in my bag next to a USB stick full of nothing they could accuse me of, yet everything they'd one day wished they'd paid attention to. My desk was already boxed. A junior dev I'd trained once, poor kid looked like he wanted to vanish into the carpet, handed it to me without making eye contact. Sorry, he mumbled. I just smiled and patted the box like it was a sleeping cat. As I crossed the security gate, I held my badge up out of habit. It didn't beep. Of course it didn't. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a full minute before turning the key. No tears, no rage, just a strange, humming calm, like the moment before a controlled burn when everything's been soaked in kerosene and all it's waiting for is a name to vanish from payroll. I opened my phone, switched over to a hidden Proton Mail account I'd kept for system pings. Just one line. Subject, custodian removal body, system integrity suspended. Custodian removed, hit send. And just like that, the invisible glue dissolved. The cron jobs quietly disabled themselves. The watchdog demons blinked off like fireflies. I drove home with the windows down. The silence was a symphony. That evening, while I was chopping vegetables and drinking a cheap wine that tasted like vengeance and blackberries, my phone buzzed. It was Mia, one of the only engineers left with a soul. Mia, Travis just asked me how to restore the backup server. I think he thought it was in AWS. It's not, is it? I grinned, me, nope, because the backup server was mine, and now it was just another ghost in the machine whispering, you should have let her touch the root server. It started small, as all avalanches do. A hiccup, a flicker, of those little network burps that usually fixes itself in 5 minutes and gives the help desk an excuse to eat a donut while pretending to troubleshoot. Monday, 7:42 a.m. Exchange server latency spikes. Internal emails start bouncing. Slack integrations lag by 30 seconds. Not a catastrophe. Not yet. Travis strides into the IT bullpen in his usual cloud of cologne and misplaced confidence. He's the red flags on the status panel and waves them off like flies. It's a DNS thing, he announces. These things shake out. Someone reboot the router or whatever. Router or whatever. Meanwhile, in a patio chair 2 states away, I'm sipping a mimosa beside my sister, toes in the pool, watching the same dashboard on my phone. I'd installed a silent mirror of the ops panel on a private domain months ago. They never noticed. Too busy breaking what they didn't understand. Red bar flickers again, this time on the drift node. Server drift is one of those invisible evils. Misaligned timestamps, sync errors, tiny mismatches that cause big headaches over time. Most folks ignore it until a critical process fails at 2 a.m. and payroll gets routed to the wrong accounts. Not me. I'd written an auto-heal script for drift 3 years ago. A quiet little thing that corrected discrepancies every night at 2:12 a.m. sharp. No fuss, no logs, it just worked. Until now. Because that script only ran if my custodian profile was active. And as of Friday morning, Jane A user equals false. I watched the sync error multiply. Minor now. But it would cascade, it would cascade. Drift always does. Like a toddler with a crayon, it starts on one wall and ends up on the dog. I took a bite of avocado toast, nodded to my sister who was ranting about her HOA board, smiled like a woman who knows the dam's cracked and no one's heard the hiss yet. Across the country, Mia pinged me from her personal number. Mia, he's blaming our ISP, wants to call a vendor. Should I say something? Me, nope, because there was nothing to say. When you cut out the lungs of system and wonder why it's gasping, that's not a support ticket, it's natural selection. At 8:07 a.m., the alert system tried to auto-resolve the drift warning. It failed. Response module blinked red for the first time in 2.5 years. No override script. No fallback, and Travis. He walked into the Monday ops stand-up, coffee in one hand, whiteboard marker in the other, sketching a new redundancy schema that looked like a toddler's drawing of a spider on cocaine. I turned off my phone, took another sip. The mimosa tasted like quiet justice. Tuesday, 7:14 a.m. The finance cluster crashes. Not a soft crash, not the kind where you lose one node and fail over gracefully. No, this was full stop. Dead on the table. Transaction queues frozen mid-write. Payroll scheduler spinning like a drunk spider in a dead web. By 7:21, the login server joins the funeral. LDAP handshake fails. Password reset links start bouncing. Office staff can't access their emails, ticketing system, internal HR portal, hell, can't even log into the building Wi-Fi to file a complaint. 7:38 a.m. Slack explodes with ghost pings and error logs. Someone tries rebooting the mail relay and trips the dependency loop I warned them about 6 months ago. It locks out 3 service accounts and dumps a syslog into oblivion. Classic cascade failure. Delicious. By 8:05 a.m., every monitor in the building, every single one, goes black. Blank. Terminal. Void. Not the cool hacker movie black with green letters and dramatic music. Just the kind of hopeless, uncaring blackout that smells like burnt plastic and poor decisions. The smart thermostats, no longer tethered to their controller daemon, default to heat mode. Office temp spikes to 86 degrees F. Someone tries opening a window. The windows don't open. The building is now a sauna full of tech bros and whimpering interns. He messages me again, Mia, they've formed a war room. Ron says maybe the firewall was hacked. Travis is sweating through his shirt. Me, good. Hydration is key during high-stakes incompetence. At 8:12 a.m., my phone rings. Unknown number. I don't answer. It rings again. Different number. Local area code. I smile, sip my black coffee, and let it go to voicemail. The third time, I finally glance at the screen. It's a number I recognize. A burner phone Travis once bragged about having in case of corporate espionage. Like he's Jason Bourne with a trust fund and no situational awareness. I swipe it away. No need to answer. What would I even say? You broke it all by yourself, champ. Instead, I pull up my shadow dashboard. The entire fallback layer is dark. Every cron job, demon, and rescue loop has timed out or refused to execute. System is doing exactly what it was told to do in the absence of its custodian. Nothing. And in that stillness, I feel it. Not just satisfaction, rage, but not the flailing, screaming kind. The cold, earned kind. The kind of rage that has waited, that has documented, that has watched a fraud in a button-down wreck 8 years of sleepless nights and keyboard-calloused hands, and then dare to blame it on legacy infrastructure. The servers are quiet now. That silence is mine. The silence of vindication. Let him sweat. Let the monitors stay black. Let every exec in that sauna pit conference room finally ask the one question they should have asked 2 months ago. Where the hell is Jane Alvarez? 9:17 a.m. My phone rings again. This time, I don't even need to look at the caller ID. There's a tone you can hear in the very vibration, a frantic, pissed-off executive heartbeat coming through the glass. 1 ring. 2 rings, voicemail? No. This one deserves an answer. I swipe. Jane Alvarez, I say, calm as Sunday Mass. A pause, then the voice explodes through the speaker like a jackhammer through wet drywall. Jane, this is Robert. No hello, no pleasantries, just panic layered under fury. I need to know right now what the hell you did. I smile just barely. Nothing, I say. I just stopped fixing what you never saw breaking. Silence. A long, rattled silence, a kind of pause that only happens when a CEO realizes they're not in control of the disaster they've been pretending doesn't exist. He tries to regroup. We've lost everything. Finance cluster is down. Login credentials are corrupted. The thermostats are locked on sauna mode, and legal can't access their case files. I've got board members calling from 4 time zones. I let him ramble. It's the sound of a man who's just discovered the seatbelt he cut out of the car was the only thing holding the steering wheel in place. Why didn't anyone tell me the system was this fragile? He finally growls. It wasn't, I reply. Not when I was there. I hear his breathing hitch, like maybe that was the moment the reality lands. That the infrastructure he never once complimented, never once understood, never once protected, being held together not by his golden boy Travis or the 20-slide status decks, but by the quiet hands of someone he deemed replaceable. Your golden hire, I continue, removed the fallback conditions, restructured live production environments without sandboxing, and didn't know the backup server ran on a separate node behind a hardened subnet. He thought cron jobs were a legacy system, and he deleted the orphan file manager because it sounded useless. Silence again. The only thing keeping that ship from going under, I finish, were my scripts. He exhales like a man who just realized the safe he cracked was actually a bomb. We'll pay you, he says. Consulting. Temporary. Name your rate. I already have a gig, I lie. One where they don't confuse silence for submission. Another beat of quiet. Then, what would it take to bring you back? I hang up. Because that's the thing they never understand until it's far too late. Can't unburn a bridge. Especially one that was the only thing holding up the building. The official postmortem came in Wednesday morning, cloaked in CYA language and nervous legalese. But the truth didn't need bullet points or sanitized bulletins. The root cause. Travis Penn, visionary disruptor, linked in profit, destroyer of functioning systems, had manually removed the fallback automation dependency chain. Called it bloat, that it was legacy junk clogging up the recovery loop. The forensics team traced the whole collapse back to one arrogant line in a commit message. Cleanup, removed unnecessary custodian script refs. Unnecessary. That single word took down 87% of core infrastructure. Halted payroll. Corrupted backup restores. Locked out user authentication. And turned the office into a Finnish sauna filled with panicking executives and broken badge readers. Board suspended Travis within 20 minutes of the discovery. They framed it as administrative leave pending review, but word around the water cooler was he was last seen trying to factory reset his company laptop while sobbing into a kind bar. Meanwhile, I was sitting in a sleek office across town, consulting now for their biggest competitor. They'd offered me double what I was making before. No interview. Just a handshake, a secured laptop, a contract with no non-compete clause in sight. They don't make me sit in meetings. They don't call my documentation verbose. They don't rename my systems to stroke someone else's ego. They just let me work. Wednesday, 9:00 a.m. sharp, I queued up one last message from my personal inbox. No flourish, no attachments, no legal threats or NDA violations. 2. CEO at Broken Empire Com subject. Final note body. Next time, let the woman touch the server. No signature, no need, because by now he knew, they all knew. The system didn't fall because I left. It fell because I was holding it up. And once I was gone, it didn't just collapse, it revealed who was actually redundant. Not the woman in the server room, the man who thought she was. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.